Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So this is what we're going to be creating today. It's a very simple setup in Phoenix FD in 3ds Max. It's just a regular emitter on top of this phone. So this is a beginner tutorial. I'm going to show you how I light it and the settings that I plugged in. Basically the settings are mostly default, except I added some surface tension and I played with the rendering settings for the motion blur to make it the right amount. So I'll show you how I did that. So let's jump into Max here. This should be your starting scene. I'm using an iPhone 10 as the object, but you can use anything you want. I made this around the time that the iPhone 10 was announced and came out. And I just thought that the display illuminating the water looked pretty good. But again, you can use literally anything for this. So as always, go to unit setup. Make sure that your units are metric centimeters and that one unit is 1 centimeter. This is going to be the same for all of my videos. So if we sort of measure this phone here, it's about 30 centimeters long. So it's, about maybe 3 times bigger than it is in real life. And again, I do that just to get more detail, because generally speaking, you're gonna get more detail out of the liquid simulation, if you're dealing with bigger objects. All right, so you wanna go to standard cylinder, make a regular cylinder. Like that. This is gonna be one of our emitters. Then you want to make it an editable poly. Select this polygon and make it ID6. Then hit Control I and make the rest some other numbers. So I'm gonna do 5. You can hit G to hide the grid and then select the entire element of the cylinder emitter and copy it, because what I found is that you actually need 2 emitters in order for the liquid to be equally sort of flowing across the whole surface. I started with just 1 emitter in the middle and the water didn't reach the edges. So I'm using 2 emitters here. I moved them close to the phone because what I found is that if they are high up like this, the water starts falling down, and gravity affects it, so it keeps getting faster and faster, and then the splash is, too strong. So if you just put it pretty much like really close to the phone, the water will just slowly, beautifully flow around instead of bouncing around and splashing. So let's rename this our emitter, and then you can go to standard creation panel, Phoenix FD, liquid sim. I'm gonna bring the grid back and just do something like that. You want it to be pretty tall, just because the water will be falling down here. So you can go under grid and adjust the Z axis to make it as tall as you need. Maybe it doesn't need to be as wide, and it doesn't need to be as thick either. And maybe even less, like this. And again, if you are a beginner in Phoenix FD, do not ever scale the box like this. This will just completely mess everything up. The only way you should be ever modifying the size of the box is by dragging these numbers over here, just like I am doing right now. So for now, you can leave the cell size at around 0.35, about 2 million particles is what I like to do, just to run some test simulations. And now we're gonna go under dynamics. And in case you guys are curious how I'm recording these tutorials, I have 2 monitors. So I have the finished scene on my other monitor. I'm just looking over, you know, what settings I put in everywhere. So for gravity, I put 0.8, just because I was going for a slow motion effect and I didn't want the gravity to be too strong. It also helps to, you know, keep the liquid calm and not have it splash all over the phone. Steps per frame, I did 4. Again, if you're just testing things, you can leave this at 1 or 2. Then you want to raise it up for the final simulation. For the time scale, I did 0.1. This essentially slows things down by a factor of 10. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then the most probably important thing that I had to play with is the surface tension. So I really love how the liquid wraps around the phone before it sort of is broken away from the surface and falls down. You know, if you were to lift surface tension by default, the liquid would just slide right off the phone right here and fall off the edge. But I really like how it's wrapping around the phone, and that's affected by surface tension. So the value that worked for me to achieve this effect is 1.3. You might have to play with it a little bit to find a value that works for you, or you can just leave it at 0, but I did 1.3. Then you want to go to, you can skip foam, skip splash. Output, obviously just put in the folder where you want your liquid data to go to. So I'm gonna say right there. And for your output grid channels velocity, you have to check this to get motion blur. If you don't, it will not render with motion blur. So this is a crucial step here. So again, under output grid channels, check velocity. And then under rendering, although we're not ready to render this yet, but when you are, this is how you affect the motion blur down here under rendering. And I actually set the motion blur multiplier to 0.3 just to get, you know, it basically affects how much blur you get. So I wanted just a little bit. It actually looks almost better without any motion blur just because it's sharp. But again, I did 0.3. And so now we have to do the actual emitter for the liquid. So go under helpers, Phoenix FD, liquid source, drag out a liquid source. Let me look over what I did here. So for the outgoing velocity, I did 10. I did 0 noise. And then crucial step, you have to choose polygon ID 6. I've talked about this in my previous videos, but again, it just means that the liquid will only be coming out of these two bottom faces and not the entire cylinder. Okay, so we have polygon ID 6, outgoing velocity 10. This is just Max's autosave. And then crucial step, don't forget to add the emitter under emitter nodes in order for everything to work. So then you can just click on the simulator here, go to simulation and start. And you can see our liquid is slowly coming out. You can barely see it, but it's there. I can do show mesh. So this is super low res, but it's working. And the only thing you would do at this point after you tested everything and made sure that, you know, everything's working and moving at the right speed, you would just go under grid and reduce the cell size, meaning raise the resolution. What I did for my final simulation was around 100 million particles, 95 million, 0.1 centimeters. It'll take 2 to 3 hours to render depending on what machine you have. But still pretty fast. And then this was my final scene. So you can see you get these streaks of water because the detail is there. And I can even lower the detail reductions. This is the simulation as it was finalized. Then I added some lights, just regular V-Ray lights, 2.0 multiplier. I always like to put one light brighter than the other, just to make it look like it's in a studio, I guess. And a few more lights, and that's it. And once you render it out, you're gonna end up with something like this. I put the camera like here, like that. And then you wanna right click on the emitter, go to object properties and uncheck renderable. I'm not gonna go over the rendering settings. There's a lot of tutorials for that, but I rendered it with regular V-Ray and regular V-Ray water material. And then I did very little post-production on it. I just added some curves to make it pop. And that's it. So thank you guys very much for watching. This was a quick one. This is the 5th video in my Phoenix FD tutorial series. I'll try and keep making these for as many little tips and tricks that I can give you. So if you like the content, I would appreciate if you subscribed, like the video, the drill. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.